driving to a seminar in Grand Rapids, and kind of to keep myself awake when I'm driving, I just scan sometimes on the radio. It kind of takes action, so I have to scan, listen. And I landed on actually this sermon or talk. And I don't, JJ something or another, someone may know who that is, but it was not anyone that meant anything to me. But he was talking about spirit promptings in your life, but also spirit promptings, like in moments. And, he told this story of, two parts, big spirit prompting. He felt a real call to start a church. And he contacted one of his friends who does that. And he said, if you're going to start a church anywhere in the United States, where would you start it? And the guy said, New York City. And the guy's like, no, where else? What else are you thinking? Because that's not really what I had in mind. And so his friend was like, come with me. We'll spend your weekend in New York City, and let's just think about it. So he went there, and he said he walked the streets until 2 o'clock in the morning, different neighborhoods, and praying. And God, is this the spot that you're calling me to start a church? Is this where you want me to start a church? Is this where you want me to start a church? And after 4 days, he went home and he said, that's not where God wants me to start a church. And so his friend called him up the next morning and said, well, what'd you think? He goes, it's not for me. I'm going to go to Oregon next and see where that is. And the guy said, well, why not New York? And he said, well, I'm really worried about my wife and kids, that I have to take care of them, I protect them. New York City may not be the safest place to be. And so he flies out to Oregon, and I don't remember why. Either he opened his Bible up, or he was, at a sermon or something, and he read some passage that basically said, and I will take care of your family. And he said, God did not play fair. So he said he was in Oregon, but he said he could not get his mind off of New York City. Ended up going back, starting a church in New York City. And the interesting thing is he said is, I can't imagine if I had not followed that prompting, the blessings that I would have missed in my life if I had ignored what God was calling me to do. He kept talking about, what's on the other side of those promptings. If we don't follow those promptings, what's on the other side? And then he went on to give kind of like a moment, prompting. He said he has a friend who's very good about following what Jesus calls him to do. And so the guy was at a restaurant, when he went to pay his bill, the waitress was holding her mouth. And he said, what's wrong? And she said, I've got a horrible toothache. He said, well, you should probably get in to, get that looked at. And she was like, I can't afford it. I don't make enough money here. I can't afford it. So he left, and he said he got this call from God that said, you don't even know what I'm going to do to you if you get in your car and drive away. So he went back in, and he said, if I book a dentist appointment for you, would you go? She's like, I can't afford it. He's like, if I pay for it, would you go? And so he says yes. She says yes. She goes in the Yellow Pages and finds a place, calls up and says, I have this person here. She needs to come in right now. And they said, we'll take her. So he drops her off, leaves her his cell phone number for payment, and then leaves. He gets a call a little later. He said, while they went in to look at her tooth, and all of her teeth need to be removed. They're all infected. It's really bad. And it's going to cost a lot of money. And she said, we need someone to pay for that. And he said, the light of the world is going to pay for it. And the person said, yeah, that's nice, but I need a credit card number. And so he gave her his credit card number. And then a little later, they called back again and said, when we were in there doing that surgery, it turned out that she also had beginning of mouth cancer. We sent her to an oral surgeon who is also the light of the world and is covering all of it. And and his point was, and then he actually has had, afterwards had contact with that waitress and the waitress's mom, who said, basically he saved her life. She would have died of mouth cancer. And she turned her whole life around, and obviously still had ups and downs, but went the right direction. So it was, I found it interesting, but I just think it's a good reminder too of, when you get those promptings, listen, and don't ignore them, because if we ignore them, then we're missing out on those great things on the other side. And and those can be simple things, I had a situation this week where I was talking to somebody and kind of, I didn't know where that person was, and I didn't know if they were a Christian or not, and I was kind of talking about how things, will work out, and, my first inclination was, what I would say to you guys would be, I've prayed about this, and I believe it's going to work out, because, that's, God had provided all these things to line up right. And it was that to him, and I'm like, well, there's too many of these things are kind of coming together, and finally, no, that's not really what it meant. So finally I was like, I'm a man of faith, and I prayed about this, I believe this will work. And I heard this like the next day, and I was like, oh, I'm so glad that I followed that, because I wasn't listening to that prompting of just saying something as simple as what my faith is, that I believe. That's all I needed to say. And, and it's a simple thing too. I've had, I don't know, I figured this out a long time ago. I think it had to do with a good friend of mine in law school. I had an interview, and she said, I will pray for you. I didn't even know her that well. And I realized how many times we say, like, what, good luck, right? And I'm not being, and sometimes people get really hyped about that, like we don't believe in luck. But, really what we mean is, I'll pray for you, I care about it. Or, so even if someone's not a Christian, if we can say, I'll pray for you, it's amazing the response we get back. Usually they're all, I've had some people who be like, thanks. Someone has something tough going on in their life, you say, I'll pray for you. Not, I'll think of you, I'll pray for you. If you're going to pray for them, tell them, because it makes a difference. Are you standing, Stephen? Oh, yes, I got sweet. Anyone have anything else? Should we do a song?